Sure. Yeah, and the cost of living, I mean, like you said, I would imagine there's two reasons for people would leave, right? And you said opportunities, right? Young people. But that's tied into better opportunities for wages and earnings elsewhere. Also coupled with, I'm sure, the cost of living here. Now, cost of living, I don't think that's a unique problem of Hawaii in that everywhere. I mean, if you look around, at least the U.S., I'm not familiar with everywhere. Things are just getting more expensive, right? There's inflation, and a lot of times for a lot of the listeners of this show, they're trying to be do-it-yourselfers of retirement planning, and they have to factor in things like inflation. And I think what's interesting is, and I don't know if you can speak to this. I'm not too familiar with what if you because financial planners or financial planning content podcasts, they all look at federal, inflation. But it is interesting that, each state or each country has their own, inflation. So I'm curious about why is why is there no silver bullet to cost of living issues? And then if you could speak on just the state's sort of cost of living, the trends. I don't know, like what the state inflation is compared to other states or nationally.
Sure. Um, there's a lot to unpack
There
there.
is. Sorry.
So let me just talk about inflation first, and then we can talk about and how that relates to the rest of the United States, and then I can talk about the cost of living issue, right? So the Federal Reserve has a goal of 2% inflation. There's a lot of debate in economics of whether how much inflation you want to be. The consensus is you want a little bit of inflation, so it will always go up. Over the last 7 years, we saw the highest inflation that most people have ever experienced, right? Since the late 1980s. That was the result of the pandemic and high levels of fiscal spending, right? So prices across the board are about 33% higher from 2019. So people are really concerned about that, right? And the Fed has spent a lot of time thinking about that and coming down. The Fed definitely wants 2% inflation, but there's things that are within their control or not. Like, so energy prices and food prices tend to be a lot slightly out of their control, so they pay slightly less attention. The tariffs will cause inflation. How much of the inflation that will cause is debatable, but that's outside of the Fed's control, right? So that is a kind of a long way of saying is like most people should budget for some baseline of inflation because most economists believe that a little bit of inflation is better than deflation and things like that. The Hawaii inflation tends to be pretty much bang in line with the rest of the United States, with the difference is we have high cost of living. There are certain aspects of life where we feel it more, which is even though the price of a computer, the price of podcasting, the price of taking a vacation to Hawaii has gone down in relative terms, homes, education, and healthcare prices have gone up, and those are like what most people feel is essential. There's not a lot of substitutes for those, and people get very upset about that. That is, we could talk about each one of those. Each one of those has their own dynamics. The one that most people care about here in Hawaii is housing. Housing is a pretty easy one. Like if you increase all of your incomes, and increase demand for housing, make it easier to fly out to Hawaii, but you don't build one more home. What do you think would happen to the price of homes?
Yeah, the prices would go up, right? Because
right. So if I double everybody's income, don't build any more new houses, everybody will use that to build up houses, right? And so once again, I mentioned that Hawaii has a supply problem. We don't build. Normally, when you build more or something gets more expensive, people have an incentive to provide more of those into the market. So you can imagine if ice cream cones were suddenly going for $100 an hour, I bet you a bunch of people would start opening up ice cream shops, right?
Sure.
Unfortunately, because of decisions we made at the local level, or fortunately, it just depends on how you look at it, we've decided that prices will go up, but we don't build any more homes, or the number of homes we do build it slightly less. That's changed since 2018, but essentially from like 1990s until 2015, we didn't build hardly anything. And the building that did occur was on the neighbor islands. So that's just the aspect of our cost of living. We live on an island, so like importing food and things have always been higher. That can be mitigated by higher incomes. The problem is there's certain essentials, probably housing is the biggest one, that like, unless you, like if the price of, if our incomes go up, right, it's easier to get food here, right? Like you just open up another grocery store, we figured it out, it's going to be a little bit, it's always going to be more expensive than mainland, but they'll figure it out. And we can eat as much as we want, right? It's the problem is when we start restricting things and deciding we don't want to build those things. And that's the issue with the cost of housing is the biggest one. You know, we do restrict for healthcare and things, like we don't let anybody become a doctor, right? Like you have to be board certified. We restrict the number of doctors that are produced in the United States. There's only so many spots in medical schools. We could triple the amount of medical schools, but we don't do, doctors don't want you to do that, right? So there's lots of things we could do to bring down healthcare costs. Right. So we're automatically creating some supply bottlenecks as well.
Yeah, and I guess it's interesting that again, it's kind of this discussion going back to trade-offs. Like you mentioned, we can just build more houses, but there's a trade-off there because, and rightfully so. Like I'm, you know, I love our national parks. I'm an environmentalist. I love going to the beach. I love hiking, and development kind of impedes on some of that, right? And now, you know, there's I'm sure a large cohort that wants to kind of throw cold water on any new development, maybe in the name of environmental reasons, maybe in the name of whatever it might be. And that's just a hard hurdle to get over because you're always going to have differing opinions and priorities, right?
That's absolutely right. So nobody is arguing that anything is we could be costless. Like even if we, you know, we double them out. I mean, we know how to build more housing. You just build a second floor. If everybody built one more floor, we doubled the amount of housing in Hawaii. Right. And we just made it duplexes. So, and that's not a hellscape. I've lived in Washington, D.C. and a duplex. It's fine. But that takes community coordination, right? And so people are right to be concerned about the environment and the traffic and things like that. But, you know, I've been to Europe. Europe's way more densely populated than the United States. They have a pretty good environmental track record, right? So there's nothing to say that you can't have good environmental stewardship in a slightly higher population. What we need to do is figure out how to work together and implement a common vision.
The opinions and statements presented on this show are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations. Never make any investment or financial decisions based on information offered on this show without first consulting your financial, legal, or tax advisor. All economic and performance information mentioned on the show is historical in nature and is not indicative of any future results. All indices mentioned on this show are unmanaged and cannot be invested in directly. All information is believed to be from reliable sources. However, we make no representation as to its completeness or accuracy. Lastly, all opinions expressed by Jason Cutitta and any guests on the show are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinions of or are endorsed by ToBA Financial. For Jason Cutitta, investment advisory services are offered through ToBA Financial LLC, a registered investment advisor offering advisory services in the state of Hawaii and in other jurisdictions where exempt from registration.